Good morning, good morning. So welcome everybody. I am Zoe from Phoenix Life and Wellbeing Coaching, and I am joined today by Jay Unwin. It is another Fire 5 at Phoenix. Why I have chosen something that is so complicated to say and I trip over every time, I have no idea. But I am joined this morning by Jay. Jay has brought with him 5 questions. 5 questions on our theme this month on rest and sleep. So if you are joining us, feel free to type in the comments, let us know that you are there. Feel free to comment along as we have our Q&A session. So if you haven't joined us before, the main difference with this is that I haven't seen the questions that Jay has brought with him. So I have no idea what he's going to ask. So whatever you hear over the next 45 minutes or so is straight off the top of my head, but hopefully some value in this conversation. Jay, do you want to introduce yourself and let people know who you are and a little bit about you?
Sure. Okay. So as Zoe said, my name is Jay Unwin. Thank you, Zoe, for inviting me on as well. It's really, really great to be on here, and I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting discussion. So I am a mental and physical fitness coach, speaker, and author. I help people level up what I term mental and physical fitness through changing daily habits and routines. So this topic of sleep and recovery is something that's very, very close to my heart in terms of how important I think it is to overall well-being. And yeah, so I mean, I do that through coaching. I also do it through delivering corporate workshops and things like that to help not only the individuals improve their mental and physical fitness, but also then to help the businesses and the companies improve their productivity and their staff morale, and they're reducing absenteeism and all of that good stuff. So everyone benefits from this. And I'm currently working on my second book at the moment as well, which will hopefully again get that message out to a much bigger number of people, and help those people change just little things on a daily basis, which can have some quite profound effects overall.
Awesome. Excuse me. So we will put some links in of where people can find you. And I know we've had a couple of conversations, haven't we? And we're very much on the same page with all of this, and we've had some really good conversations already. So I'm really interested in where the conversation goes today. So I am ready when you are for that.
I'm sure we're going to learn something, if nothing else. If nobody else does, then I'm sure that we will come away from this having some new insights. What I like.
For sure. So I'm ready when you are.
All right. So do you want me to start with my first question about sleep?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see. I'm curious how you'll answer this one. So which of the following films is better? The Big Sleep, Sleepless in Seattle, or Sleepy Hollow?
Oh, it's always got to be Sleepless in Seattle. Surely. Why would it be the other two? Convince me otherwise. Is Sleepy Hollow
the answer is quite clearly Sleepy Hollow, because of it being like a kind of gothic romance. You know, surely that's
I've not seen.
It's also the only one of the 3 I've seen. I have never seen Sleepless in Seattle. I've never seen The Big Sleep, although it's a 1940s Humphrey Bogart film, and it's obviously supposed to be good in its own right in that way. But yeah, never seen them. The only one I've seen out of those 3 is Sleepy Hollow. So the correct answer is actually Sleepy Hollow.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I will watch Sleepy Hollow if you watch Sleepless in Seattle.
Have you not seen Sleepy Hollow?
No.
It's a Tim Burton film. Like therefore it beats anything else you put up against. Anyway.
It's a little bit scary. Because I'm a complete wimp with films like that.
No, it's not. I mean, if you think about Tim Burton films, they're not scary. They're a bit dark and they're a bit like creepy, but they're not scary, are they? Like if you think about the recent Willy Wonka film, or the more recent one, not the old kind of Gene Wilder one, but the Johnny Depp one. That was Tim Burton. It's creepy. It's not scary though.
But they should never have remade Willy Wonka.
No, fair one.
That should never have been remade. That's a legendary film.
Yeah, I think you're on dodgy ground when you remake things. Like that are iconic in that way. But Sleepy Hollow is very, very good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will add Sleepy Hollow to my list.
Have you seen The Big Sleep?
I don't know that I've seen that either, actually.
No, I haven't, but like it's I was looking for sleep related films, right? I'm a bit of a cinephile. I love movies, and yet there's still these films coming up which are like classics, like, you know, that you hear a lot of, and I still haven't seen them. But
no,
if you look at the general opinion on something like IMDb, Sleepless in Seattle isn't as good as Sleepy Hollow in terms of overall rating. So you're wrong. I told you you're wrong.
Very different genre of film, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, absolutely, but they could still be rated. You know, if people are reviewing them and rating them at certain, you know, I think Sleepless in Seattle's coming out at a 6.8, and Sleepy Hollow's coming out at a 7.3. So
interesting.
You can argue it all you want, but the facts are there.
Films are very subjective, aren't they?
They are, but you're still wrong.
Okay.
Do you want your next question?
Yeah, go on.
Who are the better band? 90s Britpop band Sleeper or experimental rock band Sleepytime Gorilla Museum?
Well, I've not heard of either of those.
You will definitely have heard Sleeper. You definitely will have heard Sleeper.
Okay.
Yeah, because they had quite a few hits, top 40 hits in the 90s. You would recognize, and this is something, again, like when I was doing my really kind of in-depth research for this recording, because, you know, I thought it's really important that we give great value to people. I thought, oh, Sleeper, I remember them. I can't remember any of their songs, but yeah, they were kind of active from 1992 to 1998, and they were pretty good. However, experimental rock is always going to win. So Sleepytime Gorilla Museum, they've got some really good stuff. You should have a listen to that. Blow your mind.
I feel like there's some educating Zoe coming after this today, of some films and some music enlightenment, clearly.
And I hope the people that are listening to this will also be discovering some new enjoyment out of music and film.
Well, if one person can comment that they've heard of either of these two bands,
what, Sleeper or Sleepytime Gorilla Museum?
Sleepy? No, not even once.
Sleepytime Gorilla Museum is one of the best band names, though, isn't it?
It's quite a tongue twister, isn't it? It's quite a lot to fit on an album cover.
It's up there. There's another band called Giraffe Tongue Orchestra, which I really like that name. But Sleepytime Gorilla Museum's maybe it's because it's got animals in it, because both of those have got. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe. Is that what caught your attention?
Maybe I've just suddenly realised as I was saying it that both bands have got animals in them, and maybe that's why I like the names of them. Or maybe it's because it's got 3 words, and I'm attracted to 3-word band names. Who knows? Would you like your third question?
Bring it on.
What do you call a tired woodcutter?
Oh, what do you call a tired woodcutter? I have no idea.
A slumberjack.
Oh, good God. That's such a dad joke. And I will let you off because I know you're a dad.
Yeah.
But that is a terrible, terrible dad joke.
It's
terrible.
When you say it's a terrible dad joke,
I'd say try and justify it.
I'd say, like, what makes a good dad joke?
Because
it's terrible.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a dad joke.
So actually, it's a really good dad joke.
Well, yes. Okay, good dad joke, bad joke.
Fair one, but you're laughing. So the reason as well, like, I've actually thought of, and this was after kind of listing these first 3 questions, but I've actually thought of a reason why that's really important, and why there's actually I can crowbar a meaning into anything. I've realized this, and I've only really got 2 questions to prompt the conversation, and so I thought I need to fill the other 3 questions, and so I was just like, just these questions came up, right? However, as I was asking them, I realized that actually I can crowbar a meaning into this as well. So we're talking about rest and recovery, right?
Yeah.
And so rest and recovery isn't just about it's not just about sleep, right? So although in the thing that you when we discussed it, and the kind of the theme for the month and all of that was sleep and rest, and so the first things that came to my head were all sleep related, right? But that's not the only rest and recovery that we have. There's also all kinds of other downtime.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest kind of most switch off completely relaxation things that I do are listen to music, watch films.
Same, absolutely the same.
There's a reason I asked these questions. I just didn't know it.
I was saying this to somebody the other day. I have been going to the cinema quite regularly recently. One, because the cinemas are empty, nobody's going at the moment, but they've been re-showing all of the Rocky films, and
nice.
on a Sunday afternoon, and there's lots of different films coming out, but because there aren't any big blockbusters coming out, there's some quite sort of quite interesting sort of genre of films coming through. But I was saying to somebody the other day, the cinema is the one place where I switch my phone off completely and get completely lost in a different world for a couple of hours, and it's probably the one place where I find it really easy just to be able to forget everything else and just get lost. And the other thing is same as you, music for me is for kind of in between clients, or when I need a bit of an energy boost, or I need to, it works both ways, isn't it, to either relax or an energy boost. And I think this year's been great for new music. I think the creatives have really come into their own this year of like releasing new albums and things like that. So I love nothing more than to go for a nice long walk and put a new album on and zone out for a bit. So it's a good connection.
What kind of music do you tend to listen to kind of relax and rest?
My musical tastes are very varied. So I went on to what did I go on to? Dougie Stone Radio, and I had to pick, I think it was 10 songs that kind of pick 10 songs, and every single one of them was from a different genre, but they all had a different meaning or a different connection for me. I would say R&B, soul is my go-to. I quite influenced with my son's musical taste. Like quite often he'll be playing something, I'm like, oh, what's that? And I'll add it to a playlist. But I grew up on Michael Jackson, George Benson, all of that kind of soul R&B type era. So I think that's definitely at the heart. But there's lots of other like individual songs that I also like. What are yours?
For me, it's very mood dependent. So I find music is a very like any art form, it's supposed to be emotive. It's supposed to kind of elicit some kind of feeling from you. And so if I'm trying to relax, usually I find most of the time something quite, I guess, the kind of way that most people would think of relaxing music would be most relaxing, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes it's if I've got some tension for whatever reason, or I'm feeling under some stress, sometimes I need something that's quite aggressive and full on to help release that. Most of the time I'll listen to some real like down tempo trip hop, maybe some stuff like reggae and dub and stuff like that, which I find to be most relaxing because of the repetition. I find quite a lot of the repetitive beats and the repetitive bass lines I find is kind of soothing, so things like that. But then if I want to go down the kind of more aggressive route, then what I'll be going for is some really heavy metal, or some really kind of noisy drum and bass or dubstep or something like that. Just stuff which is in some way just vicious sounding, because I find that can, if that matches my emotional state, I can then almost attach my emotional state to that piece of music, and then when I change the piece of music to something more relaxing, it takes my emotional state with it. So yeah, it does really depend on my mood. But yeah, anything in between as well. Classical, I've got a really eclectic music taste as well. But yeah, when it comes to rest and relaxation, it's that sometimes it's soundscape stuff as well. Just literally just kind of, just almost like just droning noises. You know what I mean? Like it's just something which just completely puts my mind into a different place. But yeah, it does vary. It does vary.
Music is great for that. My album at the moment is Joyner Lucas, but it's just that for me, it's getting lost in the lyrics of the storytelling.
Oh, right.
Okay. And I find that's really good just for me to kind of zone out and just listen, like really tune into the lyrics of people's personal stories and their experiences. And so it's always very varied. But there's certain songs that you can really relate to, and then there's just the rhythm, or that sort of some of the music that you're talking to is very much my sort of gym music.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's always that different type of music walking to the gym, and then in the gym, and then a different type of music coming home from the gym. I think what you're saying there about how it can help you to switch state is so important. And I think a lot of people might do that. They're not necessarily aware of how that happens or why that happens, and that you can use that to help you to feel a certain way and anchor certain states and help bring back those memories that bring certain emotions with it is all really, really important.
I was thinking about that recently with I was revisiting some old pieces of music and albums and stuff that I listened to as a teenager, and a much more, although it was challenging in its own way, a much more worry-free time of life, right? There's less responsibilities and all the rest of it. And I've got a huge amount of great memories from my teenage years, which are very linked to music. Music was a huge part of my life. I was always going to gigs and festivals. I always had music on. The things that me and my friends did all revolved around music and listening to music. Have you heard this new album that this band have come out with, and stuff like that? And so when I was revisiting it, because things were popping up on my social media from bands and musicians that I follow on Instagram, for example, or in fact, there's a magazine that I follow called Revolver, which is like a kind of hard rock and metal magazine, and they often will do an anniversary post for a certain album. It'll be like such and such album is 20 years old today, or something like that, and I'll be like, first reaction, wow, God, I'm a lot older than I think I am. And then the second thing will be, I need to go and listen to that because I haven't listened to it in probably close to that amount of time. So like for perspective for those people listening, I'm 34, so these albums coming out when I was like 14 years old, or albums which are like 15 years old and came out when I was like 19 and things like that. That kind of scope between those ages was a part of my life which was massively driven by music. And so I was revisiting these albums, and I still remember like some of the tracks, like word for word. I still remember exactly where a certain riff is going to start. And it conjures up these images and these emotions that I would have had when I was listening to that album for the first time. And some of the albums, like there was some of the albums are like some of my favorite albums of all time, which I haven't listened to in ages. And I the other day I listened to an album from start to finish, full album, which a lot of people don't do now because they're listening to playlists, they're listening to individual songs. But the albums were written in a way which was almost like there was continuity between tracks. Albums were written in a way where it was almost like, even if it wasn't a concept album in name, it was still, there was a concept within it, there was a theme running through it, and you could hear progression from one album to the next with bands. And now, although albums are still a thing, and although bands and musicians still bring out albums, they don't quite have the same continuity because they're often designed to be listened to a track individually on the radio or on a playlist on Spotify or another streaming service or on YouTube or whatever. And then when you go back and you listen to these other ones and you listen to something start to finish, it's an incredible piece of artwork. And in a kind of, there's a whole feel to it. There's almost a story running throughout the kind of 45 minutes or the hour or whatever the album is. And it's more like watching a film than it is listening to a little piece of music, which is something which I think is missed a lot now, because the way people listen to music is different. They're not putting a CD in, they're not putting a record on or a cassette tape in. They're listening to an individual song because they've just searched for it.
So the story is told in each individual song now, isn't it? Whereas before, so often the story was told over the course of the album, and so you kind of went on that journey over that time, didn't you? I think that the thing for music for me is always, especially when you go back to, you know, your sort of childhood music, of how the lyrics resonate still, but in a very different way, of your, like, when you listen to them, so you recall the old feelings and you recall how you felt and where you were in that time and what, you know, your teen angst of what you were working through at that time.
Wow.
And then you hear it now and you think the lyrics, you still connect with it, but you can connect with it in such a different way because you're in a different space and a different place in life. And I just think music is incredibly powerful. That I miss live music. I miss live music.
Yeah.
I miss live concerts, and one day we'll get back out there again.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing with live concerts, because very much with speaking and stuff like that. So I was doing a fair bit of public speaking before kind of lockdown hit and everything. And live music is similar to speaking in a lot of ways, because when you're on stage and you're delivering a piece of music or you're delivering a talk, a lot of what you do and the way you act and the way you word things, or a lot of the way you behave as a musician on the stage, is as a result of interaction with an audience.
Yeah.
When you're delivering that same concert via Zoom or Facebook Live, or you're delivering a talk via that, you haven't got the same. There's so much of our communication is body language, and all you can see is like this person's head and shoulders on a screen. Or if you're doing a Facebook Live, you can't see anyone. You've just got comments coming up, and you're just performing to a camera. You don't have quite the same. You don't have the same energy transfer between you and the audience.
100%.
And so I think it's easier for people delivering a talk than it is for people performing music, because I think that music is even more of that kind of visceral experience. And I think it's quite challenging in a lot of ways. So anytime I've delivered a talk, or when I've been playing in bands and stuff like that, and I've performed on stage, it's quite tiring in a lot of ways. However, at the same time, when you come off stage, you're almost quite pumped up. You've absorbed a lot of energy from the experience, as well as kind of expending it. And when you have done the same thing on a virtual system, you feel way more drained when you finish it. Or that's at least what I found. And so again, bringing it around to rest and recovery, the recovery needed is different, and it's possibly more, at least in my experience. For me, I feel like I need to recover more from doing something like what we're doing now, or from delivering a talk on Zoom, or from doing something where there is a video link. I find it easier when it's just audio, but like recording a podcast. But when it's video, I find that I get like this slump afterwards. And so, and what I do for relaxation is kind of has had to change as well. Whereas before, if I was out and about and delivering stuff and seeing people face to face, coaching face to face, working with people face to face, delivering talks face to face, then I would feel much more comfortable having downtime that was on a screen, such as like watching a film, or playing a computer game or something like that. And now, because everything I deliver is to a screen, I feel that my downtime needs to be offline more, because otherwise the balance is shifted too far one way over the other.
Yeah, that's such an important point, and I think picking, to put that into the theme of rest and sleep, a lot of people over the last couple of months, some people have been aware of that, and they have adapted what they would normally do to take time out, what they would normally do to empty the stress bucket, but not everybody has. So a lot of people are still trying to apply old ways to a new way of living, and I think it's not working for people. So I think that raises a really good point for people who are watching back or watching now, that if your rest isn't helping you to feel rested, then maybe it's time to look at what else you might be able to do to be able to get that downtime. It's been the same for me. I've been reading a lot more, because like you, that I'm kind of exhausted of that screen time, and that people, being in that, even though it's not a connection, but just again, people doing people-y things, that actually it's been quite nice to get lost in books, or music, and not be able to close my eyes and switch off a little bit. So I think there's a lot of people that would probably benefit from hearing that. So thank you. It's good to
know. It's I think the more that I think it just comes down to a bit of self-awareness more than anything else, rather than just going through the motions of this is what I've always done, so this is what I'm going to continue doing. I think the more that we can be kind of switched on as to what we are doing and how it's affecting us, and all of that kind of thing, I think that then we can make those tweaks. But I think it's that reflection that we need to start with, in terms of understanding our starting point, which is the same with everything, right? It's like you can't change anything until you know what needs to be shifted.
But the go-to tends to be do more of the same, isn't it? And so that tends to be the go-to response of, that's not working, so I'll just do more of it, or I'll just do it a little bit harder, or just like kind of increase it a little bit. Whereas actually, and I think in particular with rest and sleep, sometimes it's that taking that step back and going, right, what isn't working? Why isn't it working? And what can I do instead, rather than trying to do more of the same, or just try and tweak what you're doing. Sometimes it does need a complete overhaul.
No, absolutely. So having been in the fitness industry for like nearly a decade, and sleep and rest was always the thing which I was probably the worst at, of the three big things that affect your kind of your physical fitness the most, being your training, your nutrition, and your sleep. That was the one which I ignored, and it's the one which most people ignore. And what you'll find, I mean, you obviously know all this stuff from your background in terms of your training and stuff like this, and I'm sure you've come across it yourself as well. Like, people put their training first, then they bung nutrition on at the end and go, well, I should probably have a look at that as well, and then they ignore the sleep. That's the priorities list that kind of people look at. Whereas depending on what people's goals are, they're all roughly the same in terms of equal importance, but with maybe one slightly higher than the other, depending on what the goal is. Like, if someone's trying to lose body fat as their primary goal, then their nutrition probably should be number one, their sleep should be number two, and their training should be number three. But very, very slight differences in terms of importance. They're all fairly equal. Whereas if someone's looking to improve their performance, then it might be a slightly different order. So like, their training might be number one because they're training for a very specific skill or very specific strength or fitness kind, if you like. And then their nutrition and their sleep will be both very close second, for example. They're all very, very similar. They should be kind of fairly, the pillars of each should be roughly the same height. And it's only really even the last couple of years, and this year in particular, that I've really, really got into the sleep and the recovery and the rest side of things quite in the same way as I have the rest of it. And in terms of myself, I've always kind of preached it, but in terms of my own lifestyle, I've had a lot of learning over the years through experience of burning out. That the rest and recovery is so vital. And an analogy that I use quite a lot now is talking about an Olympic swimmer. And I use this as an example when I'm talking about mental stress as well, because physical stress, mental stress, our fitness, the way I define fitness is your ability to cope with and recover from stress. So physical fitness is your ability to cope with and recover from some kind of physical stress, some kind of physical challenge. Your mental stress is therefore your ability to cope with and recover from mental stress. That's what your mental fitness is. And we are constantly bombarded by stresses of some kind, whether it's physical, whether it's mental. It's something that's not going away. We should not be trying to get a life of less stress, but rather becoming more equipped to deal with that stress. That's what I believe anyway. And the analogy that I use in terms of the swimmer is that if you are an Olympic swimmer and you're training to be the best in the world, you have to still get out of the pool at some point. You can't just train through it. And most people understand this in terms of physical fitness more than they do with mental fitness. They think, I can't just live in the gym. I need to come away from the gym and rest and recover. Yes, people might not give themselves enough rest or good quality rest. And they might be going in and just hammering themselves and overtraining, but they still know they've got to leave the gym. They still know they've got to get out of the swimming pool. Otherwise they will die. Yet with mental stress, people seem to be quite happy to stay in that stress for a very, very long period of time, an extended period of time. So 8 hours of work a day in a stressful job, and then bringing that home with them to then sit with at home when they should be relaxing and recovering from that mental stress and that workload. They're thinking about it more. Maybe they brought actual work home to do kind of extra. I was guilty of this when I used to be a teacher, which was prior to what I'm doing now. I would be working until 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I'd be working a full day at the weekend as well. And when you consider mental stress in the same way as you consider physical stress, like a workout, it is a mental and emotional workout. You require rest after that. The stress can help you get fitter and stronger mentally, but only if you allow the time to recover. And I think that was a huge learning point for me, understanding that actually I need to make this a priority. Doing more work isn't better. After being a teacher, being self-employed and working as a personal trainer and a fitness coach online, and I owned my own gym for a little while, and all of these things, you're kind of like, there's always more that you could be doing. And so you think, in order to excel, in order to get further forward in my business, I need to do more of this stuff. Whereas in reality, if I'd done more rest and recovery, then I would have done the stuff better in the first place. Rather than doing more, I could have actually done those things better and got a better result.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of the resilience, isn't it? Of building resilience is being able to take that step back and rest and recover. So you've got the energy, mental and physical, to go back in and keep fighting the fight or keep that going. And I think the other thing that you said that I picked up on is that we can't control the environment. We can't control those external things that create the stress in our life, but what we can control is having that mental and physical energy, mental and physical resilience and recovery to be able to deal with that. And I think that's one of the big differences. But what you do notice, and I know that you'll know this from your world as well, is that when the external pressure hits, we tend to let go of controlling nutrition, how active we are, and our rest and sleep. Whereas actually those are the three things. And I know you said you use the word pillars, but they are the three pillars that hold us up when there's that external pressure gets really, really heavy. So if we can focus on keeping those three pillars that strong and making sure that we put all of our, as much as we can control those three pillars. We can't control the external pressures, but we can control keeping those three pillars strong. But what people tend to do is let those go. And if those pillars aren't strong, then the external pressure is going to crumble us a lot quicker than it would if that's where we focus. But we spend a lot of time, don't we, focusing on and trying to control the uncontrollables and take our eye off the ball of actually the things that make a huge difference, not just now, but longer term as well.
do you think that's why people tend to let those things slip when they're faced with a particularly big amount of stress or a particularly big challenge, whether it's physical or mental? Do you think that those things, those kind of well-being habits slip first? Do you think that's because people become too busy trying to control the actual stress itself rather than their response to it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do. I think that's certainly I think looking at the last, 2020 as a whole, if you like, I think the people who are managing what's going on better are the
yeah,
people who are controlling the controllables, just focusing on what is under their control, and then trying to not focus on everything else. And I think people who are, I think it's just that sort of tunnel vision at the moment, isn't it, of okay, let's just kind of head down and work out what we are certain of, work out what we do know, and focus on that. But those three pillars are so important that that sometimes, even if in a week where it feels like the world is falling apart, if you can eat well, make good food choices, and you can have some downtime, give yourself some time out, get as much sleep as possible, and try and stay active, it just helps things feel better. The world can all be turning to ratchet, but actually those three things can help things feel better, but also you feel more in control. And sometimes that's part of the stress itself, isn't it, of not feeling in control?
I think that's probably not just part of it. I think it's the biggest part of it. I think that humans are rubbish at chaos. I think we are we find it very difficult to not be in control of things. And I wonder how much of it is evolutionary, because the unknown is dangerous. As we evolved, that was something that we wanted to avoid. We wanted to avoid situations where we didn't know what was going to happen, because it was often going to be dangerous to us and we were looking for survival.
Yeah.
I think that, so part of it is that, but I also think part of it is maybe societal, that teaches us that we should be in control all the time. I think the personal development industry as a whole has got a lot to answer for in that vein, because it kind of teaches us that, your life is the way it is because of the decisions you've made. Yeah, up to a point.
Yeah.
But the the way we choose to respond to all the things that have happened to us will dictate a direction that we take in our life. But we didn't cause the things to happen in the first place a lot of the time, and it's arrogant and naive, naive at best and arrogant at worst, to believe that you have that level of control. You didn't have any say in, for example, the country you were born in. That was complete chance, and that has a huge impact on what your life is going to be like and what your formative years are going to be like. If you're born in Syria in the past kind of few years, that's going to be a really challenging place to grow up. If you were born in the UK, probably not so challenging. There's going to be challenges, but they're going to be very different, and they're probably not going to be life or death challenges. And so the way you've turned out as a human being, yes, the way your life is a result of some decisions you've made, but it's also a result of absolute chaos and uncertainty. And the more you can accept that and go, oh, that's cool, like I have very little control over what goes on around me. In fact, the only thing I control, like you said, is what I do, my behaviors, my actions, my response to that. And that is clouded somewhat by the fact that your brain is so complex that you don't actually have, that you will still do stuff which you don't understand why you do it. And it's like so you don't even have 100% control over what you do. There is stuff that is going on way below the surface, which is dictating your behaviors as a result of your past experiences and maybe traumas you've been through and all the rest of it. And so if we understand that, we've got a lot more control over what we do and pretty much zero control over external stuff, then focusing on that and going, right, I'm going to change the things I can and accept not. And if we become more comfortable in uncertainty, I believe that is essentially what fitness is in a lot of ways. Because if you think about physical fitness being the ability to deal with a stress if it comes along, and this will mean different things for different people, because if you have certain health or physical limitations which stop you from being able to lift heavy weights or stop you from being able to run long distances or run far. It's not all about that. It could be about getting through daily life without falling over. It could be getting up and down the stairs without getting out of breath. The physical challenges will vary from person to person. But then it's that uncertainty of, what am I going to physically have to do today? Am I going to have to get up and down the stairs? Am I going to have to run away from something? Am I going to? So there's various kind of uncertainties that we can prepare our bodies for as best we can. And it's the same mentally and emotionally. If we are more able to cope with uncertainty, inevitable uncertainty, because that's just the way things are set up, then we are fitter. We are more able to cope with that stress. And if you look at fitness as defined by the kind of natural selection, Charles Darwin kind of way of looking at things, a lot of people misunderstand the survival of the fittest. They think fittest, they mean strongest, they mean most physically dominating. And that's the way that people see fitness in general. You know, they see big, muscular men and women. They see fit people on doing athletics and sports and stuff like that, and we have this idea of fitness, right? But in terms of natural selection, it's not survival of the fittest in that way. It's survival of the species most adaptable to change. That's literally what natural selection is. And so even in that biological sense, the fittest is the species that is most adaptable to change. It's the individual that is most adaptable to the changes in its environment. It's the one that's most able to cope with uncertainty. And that's what fitness is. That's what we should be looking at in terms of upgrading our own physical and mental fitness, is how can we best steel ourselves for the storms that will happen.
It's almost fit for purpose is what's come into when you describe that, isn't it? It's that fit for purpose. And I think it's that we might not be certain about what's going to happen in the future. We might not even be certain about what's going to happen tomorrow, but what we can learn and grow and evolve to be certain that we know that whatever happens, we've got the tools and resources and the skills and the experience to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at components of fitness, even just like normal kind of the main components of fitness as dictated when you do a PT course or something like that, there are two. I mean, most people think of cardiovascular fitness. Some people might then think of strength. But there's 5 health-related components and 6 skill-related components of fitness just in those terms. So like health-related components, you've got cardiovascular fitness, strength, muscular endurance, body composition, and flexibility. And you think, if you can't work on something of those because of something underlying, something which is stopping you from doing it genuinely, there are other things you can work on. So if you're working on your flexibility, but you can't work on your cardiovascular fitness because of whatever reason, then cool, work on that. And that's only looking at the health ones. Under the skills related ones, you've got things like agility, speed, power, coordination, reaction time, and balance. I think those were the 6. I'm massively impressed with myself for remembering those. But but if you're working on your balance, that is part of your physical fitness. If you're working on your hand-eye coordination or any other coordination, the ability to use more than one body part at a time, then you are working on your fitness. If you're working on your reaction times, then you're working on your fitness. Those things aren't conventionally thought of as being kind of working on your fitness, and in the kind of general population anyway, at least. But we know that in the fitness industry, we know that, and we should be encouraging people to do those things as well. And I've got we were talking about 3 pillars of kind of movement, nutrition, sleep. Those are kind of 3 big pillars that we've been talking about. But I've got 5 pillars because 3 is just not good enough for me. I've expanded it because I'm picking up mental fitness as well, and the whole perspective. So movement, nourishment. I prefer talking about nourishment than nutrition, because I believe it also then incorporates water and breathing, because you're nourishing the cells of your body with the things that you're trying to get in. So movement, nourishment, recovery, because it's not just about sleep and rest, but you could have active recovery as well. And then the other two, which I've which I like to talk about, are stimulation, like mental stimulation, and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And with those 5 pillars, you're getting a much more well-rounded kind of holistic approach to your mental and physical well-being, because mental stimulation through listening to music or playing music or reading or writing or doing puzzles or learning in some way, or whatever. So stimulation is vital to our well-being. Our brains are developed to be curious, right? And then connection with other people, with nature, with ourselves. It's kind of how I approach spirituality. I'm a very scientific spiritual person, right? But connection, whether you're religious or traditionally spiritual, or whether you're spiritual in a different way and you're connected to nature and what's around you, that's vital in terms of your physical and mental health as well, because that allows you to, again, manage your stress much, much better. I saw another study recently about forest bathing, which is the kind of Japanese concept of going out and being in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
It was to do with stress reduction in walking in the woods versus walking in a city. And again, it's another scientific study which showed that where you're walking is great for stress reduction anyway. If you're in a city and that's all you can do, awesome, it's better than nothing. But being in nature reduces stress even more. And so that connection with what's around us is vital for not only our mental but our physical well-being as well. I can't remember why I went off on this tangent, but hey, it seemed like it was a good opportunity.
But it's I think you talk about the 3 pillars, the 5 pillars. I know for me, working with people, we talk about human needs, psychological needs, physiological needs, and they all do connect in together. And I think people who have learned to expand that and work across all of those different areas benefit massively from them. And I know it's not easy for everybody, and for some people you do need to narrow it down to the kind of the key 3, but the more you're able to expand that and the more you're able to make that part of a daily routine, the benefits are huge. Psychologically, emotionally, physically, the benefits are huge. But there's so much out there that we can't control, that just really changing that focus into the things that we can just makes a huge difference.
I think the other thing with regards to kind of the pillars that we've been discussing is that certain things can hit more than one. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if we were looking at movement, if you're doing complex movement patterns, that hits the stimulation as well. So if you're looking at, for example, how movement improves or reduces the risk of cognitive decline in older populations, and you look at how movement reduces the risk of developing dementia, for example, if the movement is then complex movement and learning new movement patterns, then that it supercharges that effect and it reduces that cognitive decline even more. And we can harness that at any age to improve our brain function, not just through moving, because moving releases more neurotrophic factors in the brain and helps improve the kind of the health of the brain cells we've got, not just the neurotransmitters but the actual kind of physical brain neural cells that we've got, and make stronger connections as well. But then doing complex movement stimulates that even more. So you're hitting movement, but you're also hitting stimulation. And if you do that in a place where you're you can, if it's yoga, for example, you can also get some kind of connection there in terms of like connection with your body connection. There's also a spiritual element there where there's a lot of breathing. So you're hitting nourishment as well. You can hit lots of different of those pillars without having to do loads and loads of different things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that when we were talking about people who are letting their habits slip as a result of these external stresses, I think a big part of that, if not the biggest part of that, is the way that they've set up those habits and those routines in the first place. And I think they've set them up in a way where they're reliant on motivation. And so when something distracts them, that motivation goes on, and that energy has to go somewhere else because a family member's ill, or their washing machine needs replacing, or there's a global pandemic, and they go off on this other stuff, quite rightly, totally understand.
Yeah.
And they take their energy away from these habits and routines of well-being, which would actually help them deal with this other stuff. If they had set them up in the same way as, for example, brushing their teeth is set up, whereby it is a habit which is just ingrained into them and they feel more weird not doing it than doing it, they're not relying on motivation to brush their teeth. Yes, sometimes you will still lose, you'll be feeling so flat that you might not brush your teeth. You might get up in the morning and just go, sacking that off even, right? And I understand that. I've been there. If you're struggling with something like depression as well, it's a completely different kettle of fish. Even getting out of bed can be a massive struggle. That's not what I'm talking about. But because brushing your teeth is so ingrained, it's the last thing that will go. It is the last thing that will go. It is
also the amount of energy that's needed to keep those routines, those behaviors, those habits going. You want it to be part of, this is what I do. This isn't something that I need to think about. This isn't something that I need to take energy from the energy pot out of to be able to do it. So then it doesn't, when something else happens, it's almost like a separate energy pot that you can take from. So absolutely. And it needs to be, it's part of that, becoming part of that normal habit, normal routine, isn't it? Of, well, it's Wednesday, I go to spin on a Wednesday. Well, it's Thursday, I do this on a Thursday. Well, it's the morning, so I go for a walk. It's, know, after lunch, so I'm going to go and listen to some music for half an hour. It's the things that become part of our routine. So it's almost that unconscious habits and behaviors, like cleaning your teeth. You wake up, you wash your face, you clean your teeth, you eat your breakfast, you go for a walk, and those things. So
you automate them, and if you use your willpower at the start when you're changing these things to put them in place in a way which will not require willpower and motivation further down the line, then when these things hit and you get blindsided by life, you're less likely for those things to slip. They still might, or they might change in some way, but they're more, the foundations are much stronger. And so I think that's something which I teach. It's this kind of the second part. I've got my kind of, in the book I'm writing at the moment, I've got those kind of 5 pillars. Of going into more depth into those, and then the second part is about how to actually set up these habits which will stick long term. Because I think that if we do that, and if we build our life in a much more kind of looking at the tiny bits and pieces which will then add up, it's much better than trying to rely on that motivation and willpower. I'm noticing the time, and I've got still got 2 questions for you.
Goodness.
Okay.
Right. Fire them up.
I'm just going to get my my timer out because you've got 30 seconds for this one.
Okay.
Hang on. Right. In 30 seconds, list the top 5 benefits of getting more and better quality sleep.
Okay. So you've got your physical health benefits, the cell repair, your immune system, huge benefits around some of the illnesses that affect long-term life. You've got energy levels. You've got your ability to be able to think, concentration levels, which help you to make good choices.
5 seconds.
I still got 2 left. Is that 5?
All right, you're done. I think that was plenty. There was loads of benefits there. As always, there's crossover. So it's hard to say whether it's 5 or not because there's so much crossover within that. It's fantastic. I think sleep is one of the things that more and more people are starting to get a bit more switched on with, but it still needs a bit more focus. Right, last question then. What single action do you believe has the greatest impact on sleep quality for most people?
The evening routine and the wind down.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing that I notice is that people go from it's like an emergency stop rather than a slow down. So I think for most people, and it's very individual, dependent on what people's responsibilities and commitments are, but ultimately that wind down routine into slowing down to a stop rather than a kind of going at 90 miles an hour, getting into bed and expecting your body to just switch off. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah, nice. 5 questions, did it?
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was good fun. Your first couple of questions threw me, but it was good to talk about films and music.
Yeah,
It's always
and it
nice
turned
when
out to be
somebody
relevant.
it's always nice when somebody brings something different as well, because it makes it more interesting for me and also more interesting for other people. And there's some comments in the chat about music and memories and emotions. So definitely resonating with people out there. So thank you so much for your time. If you are watching back, do feel free to comment. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them into the comments section and I will answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll go back to Jay and pull Jay back in to answer them for me. But Jay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, mate.
And we will be back next time with a new topic and new guests. So thank you very much and have a fantastic day.